And the room is definitely filled up since we left. Just to give everybody a heads up, we are running about 5 minutes behind. So after our 5 o'clock meeting adjourns, I will give the assembly about a 5-minute break, and then we will jump into our 6 o'clock meeting. So I apologize for the delay for those who are in the audience.
I move to reconvene.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All right, thank you. So we are reconvened as the assembly in regular session. We just went into executive session to review our municipal administrator, John Leach. Everybody had satisfactory comments for Mr. Leach, and he did receive a satisfactory review. There were a couple items that the assembly talked about with him as a whole, just to set course. I would not say that there was any course corrections, but to set course for the future. The assembly as a whole believes that we have a strong administrator and that we want to do what we can to make sure that he's supported in his position. So thank you for that. That ends our new business then. We'll be moving on to persons to be heard. This is for public participation for any item on or off of the agenda tonight, not to exceed 3 minutes. Is there any public comment? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, and we will take about 5 minutes. Come back as quickly as you can so we can get the people who are waiting for our 6 o'clock meeting. Thank you. All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming this evening. A whopping 4 minutes late, so I do apologize for losing that 4 minutes. Let's see, we will go ahead and call the assembly meeting, the special assembly meeting of Tuesday, October 20th, 2020 to order. Please join me for a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sarah, roll call, please.
Mayor Eisenbach,
Present.
Mr. Christensen,
Here.
Mr. Knox,
Here.
Mr. Mosier,
Here.
Ms. Duncan. Here. And Ms. Himschoot. Here. Ms. Nelson is absent this evening.
Thank you. I do have one agenda change. The first applicant has withdrew their application, so we will not be considering Alaska Coastal Outfitters this evening, so we can cross that off. Is there any other correspondence or agenda changes this evening? Seeing none, moving on to persons to be heard. This is for any item not on tonight's agenda. If anyone would like to speak for something not on tonight's agenda, you have 3 minutes. Seeing none, we will move on to new business. Yes.
John had a kind of a report that he wanted to get out there. I think this might be a good time, since we're not going to have reports under persons to be heard a little bit. I don't know, is that okay?
Yeah. If you need the microphone for a minute.
Yeah, this should be in the paper today, I believe, and possibly on the radio as well. Something we've been doing in the EOC is we started, or we've been continuing wastewater testing to look for basically shed virus in our wastewater system. And this last report has come back of zero evidence of COVID in our wastewater system. That doesn't necessarily mean that there are no cases in town, but of the tests we have done over this time frame, the results are usually coincident with the number of cases we're seeing in town. So this coming back as a zero, I hope helps, I should say, ease some concerns that there are a lot of asymptomatic cases running around because everybody's wastewater is going to the same place. But that also doesn't mean to let your guard down. It means to continue what we're doing right now because the efforts appear to be working. Thank you.
Thank you for that encouraging report. So new business tonight. We are here to consider the appeals filed by several applicants for the CARES Act Phase 1. There was a box on there indicating if you had extenuating circumstances that you were able to appeal your grant request to the Assembly. So that's what we're here to deal with tonight. As such, the Assembly will be acting as a quasi-judicial body. I'll get that word right by the end of my term here. With that, we will be ruling and deliberating on the matters that come before us. As a quasi-judicial body, I'd like to remind the Assembly if you've had any ex parte contact with anybody. So if any of these applicants have come up to you and tried to stress their case to you, I do need you to disclose that ex parte contact because that could influence your decisions tonight. So has anybody had any ex parte contact that they'd like to talk about this evening? Great, thank you. Thank you, Assembly members, for understanding that. Brian, do you have anything to add tonight as we go forward in this process, either about ex parte or quasi-judicial or the process itself?
Mr. Mayor, I think you covered it. As a Board of Appeals, you have that obligation to make sure that you have had any ex parte contact which would bias your decision making, and now's the time to disclose that and have the body consider whether or not it's reached a point where you should recuse yourself. So if something comes up, have everybody talk about it and we'll be fine. Thank you.
Great. Yes, please.
Maybe this is coming. I just wanted a little bit more information about the process, not of our work here tonight, but what is the outcome of tonight if a business is denied through our process? is there another round for them to appeal again? Or is this is the final, shall we say, final judgment?
Yes, that actually was the next thing I was going to hit.
Sorry,
So perfect.
okay.
No, perfect. I'm glad we're thinking alike on that. So tonight, each appellant is going to have 3 minutes to go through their needs for additional funding from the round one of city's CARES Act funding. Each applicant will come up individually, they'll have 3 minutes to state their case. At that point, then the assembly will have time to deliberate on that case. We will make a motion. Motions do need to be made in the affirmative. So we'll make a motion to go forward, and we will see if that appeal is granted or denied. And we're going to do that for each individual person. If tonight someone does not receive the grant amount that they are requesting, there is other opportunities for CARES Act funding. Right now, round 2 of business grants is eligible or is live. So if you qualify, and I say if because the guidelines are much more strict on round 2, round 2 grants are available. Those grants are also significantly larger. I believe the maximum amount, John, is $50,000 per applicant, so significantly larger. There is a large pool of money there. So if your appeal is not granted tonight, that is another avenue for you. There is 2 more weeks left in that application process. It does end October 31st. So 2 more weeks for round 2 grants. And Rebecca, does that answer all your questions?
Yes, I guess one final clarification is someone who is denied, or is someone were to prevail tonight and we were to rule in their favor, would they then not be eligible for that second round?
No, an affirmative or a denial tonight would not preclude someone from applying for round 2.
Thank you.
So unless there's anything else, Mr. Leach?
Yeah, if I can take just a minute, Mr. Mayor, to kind of explain why we're at this step and what it means and what's been done
Yes, please,
already
thank
to
you.
get here. So in round 1 of the business and nonprofit grants, it was a very objective look based on the application. There were some hard numbers and some I would say some gates you had to hit to become eligible for certain sizes of grants. So what you'll see on this appeal sheet, there's a mix of 2 different types here. The first type is a person submitted their application and they immediately stated that they felt that the amount they were eligible for did not meet their needs, and they wanted to go immediately to assembly review. So when you look on your sheet, you'll see some of them that say you requested special consideration by the assembly for a higher award. However, we still reviewed that application to determine what they were objectively eligible for. There are others in here where you will see that they were eligible for something, asked for something else. It was I don't want to say denied, but they were deemed ineligible for the amount they requested. It was adjusted back to the amount that they were allowed under the program. And this is their, I guess this would be second line appeal. Through that process, the first, finance was the ones that approved or denied the applications. I was the first line appeal. And then this is the second line appeal coming to the assembly after the letters went out. So we sent letters to the individuals and gave them a date to say if you would still like to speak to the assembly, the notification is due on a certain date. And to answer Ms. Himschutz's question, if you look on this spreadsheet, at a minimum, they will get the amount eligible. So if you deny or deem that their request is ineligible, they will still get that minimum amount listed on here.
Great, thank you. Anything else from the assembly before we jump into the first application here? All right, seeing none, if we could have the applicant for Alaska Skiff LLC step forward, please. And Mr. Leach, as I'm looking at this one, I do have a question on here. On the application, it indicates that they would like the assembly to consider the $7,500 level, but it says approved at that, and they're asking for $10,000. Can I get a little clarification on the amounts requested and granted, please?
So a lot of this stuff I wasn't able to get in the full application package. I just wanted to give you guys the actual application that they sent in. But in this one specifically, the first request was for a $5,000 grant, but requested 75, or they were eligible for 5,000 based on the application they submitted, requested 7,500, but then we later found that they were actually eligible for a higher amount at 7,500, but now the request is for 10,000.
Okay, understood the discrepancy there. Thank you. Welcome, and thank you for joining us this evening. You will have 3 minutes to go over your special request this evening, and if you could start by stating your name for the record, please.
Matthew Stromer.
Thank you.
Please.
Please.
Alaska Skiff. And the 5,000 it was kind of a mix up on the application process. I applied for the Alaska Skiff and Captain Juju's, my wife's food truck. And what they did is they combined that because our taxes, the way we file is a joint tax. So that's why we had to combine it into one. So it made us eligible for the 7,500.
Okay.
And I had originally asked for more for Alaska Skiff under that. And that's where I came to the $10,000 amount. As we know, the economy in Sitka has been drastically impacted by the COVID. Alaska Skiff itself, I was able to stay busy this season and get work, but much of that work on some larger jobs, in order to stay competitive and make sure I would keep work in the building, I did that work at a much lower margin. So right there, the business was affected, but I had to make sure that we kept operations going. And also with the food truck, I don't know if you guys consider that essential or not, but that, of course, was affected.
And we are just considering the application for Alaska Skiff LLC tonight. I can't consider the application
They combined
for...
them into one, but anyways, Alaska Skiff, just in regard to that one, did several jobs at a lower margin than typically I would do, just to make sure the work was filled. And a big consideration is the forecast I see for this ongoing future. Typically this time of year, I am filled up until spring and then some, and I just try to work in what I can. Right now, that's not the case. I've had a lot of jobs that I thought I was going to have quite a bit of work this winter to get us through, but because of, as everyone knows here, I'm sure, the poor fishing season, poor returns plus lower prices have caused a lot of guys to reconsider large projects and either put them on the back burner or just completely walk away from them. I just had another call today, which was a real substantial job that is no longer on my schedule. So that's what I'm looking at, and that's why I'm asking for a little bit more help.
Okay, thank you. Would you be willing to answer questions from the assembly tonight?
Sure.
Okay, so this brings it back to assembly deliberation. If you have any questions for the applicant, you're welcome to. Either that or we can just debate amongst ourselves. So if anyone would like to open it up. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I mean, when we put this together, we knew it was
wasn't gonna make anybody whole. And it fit the money we had. And, you know, I would love to have had a program where we could have just said how much, you know, to make everybody as if it didn't happen. But the idea was to blunt the pain. And with the new, I would highly recommend that Alaska Skiff put in for the second round, which has a little more flexible. But we had to have some sort of metric, and gross sales, we had to come up with something. And gross sales is what we came up with. And so I don't think I think every person who applied could come up with a similar story as to why it really should get more. So unfortunately, I don't see anything here that says there's some real extenuating circumstances where they didn't fit into the categories, so.
Thank you. Please.
I need to ask another clarifying question, either Mr. Leach, Mr. Hanson, or someone from the task force. The money is to be used for lost revenues due to COVID. So we cannot apply this to a poor fishing season, correct?
That is correct, and that's actually one of the challenges we're having with round two right now is separating the poor fish returns from the COVID impact. This is very specifically directed towards COVID
Right.
impact.
It's the perfect storm, thanks.
If I could clarify there, I mean, my business and my customers, many of them are fishermen, so the loss of revenue is because they could not afford the jobs that they want to have. So it's, I mean, it is connected, but it's slightly different.
Thank you. Further deliberation by the assembly or a motion? I remind you again that the motion does need to be in the affirmative. There is a sample motion available with some notes underneath for the yes or no vote.
I move to grant the appeal for Alaska Skiff.
Second.
Thank you. We will not be taking public comments on each of these as is normal, as we are meeting in a quasi judicial body. So we will go straight to voting on this. Sarah?
Okay, on the motion to grant the appeal for Alaska Skiff LLC, Ms. Duncan,
Yes.
Ms. Himshut,
No.
Mr. Knox,
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
No.
Mr. Christensen,
No.
and Mr. Mosier.
No.
The motion fails to grant the appeal. It's 1-5.
Thank you for your time this evening, sir.
Do apply for the second round.
All right, we'll be moving on to number 3 in the packet, although our second, Ann's Gavin Hill Bed and Breakfast. If the applicant could step forward, please. Limp forward, crawl forward. We can move a table back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, so as before, you will have 3 minutes to go over your extenuating circumstances. And if you could start by stating your name for the record, and then the microphone will be yours.
Ann Bills.
Thank you.
Okay, I have a bed and breakfast. And as you can tell, our tourism season took a big hit. And I had lots of, I'm a cash or check only business. I don't have credit card capabilities. I try to keep my prices low. I like families. And a lot of times it's pretty expensive to come here with a family, so I take a deposit of 50% of the base rate. And when people get here, I collect the rest and the sales tax and bed tax. And so early in the year, starting back in before December, people start calling. They start getting worried about their reservations and so on and so forth. So they send in the deposit in order to secure the reservation. I don't want playing games here. I want them to show up. And so I had reservations clean through July. Come March, I started being asked for refunds. I will give a refund of the whole thing without charging them anything for the refund if they contact me 8 days before they're supposed to be there. Well, obviously, these people contacted me way early. And I could see that this was going to be a tough season. Last year was a tough season, not because of the COVID, but because of our ferry system, because my customers tend to be people that use the ferry and have charter boat fishermen and come in on the plane in a day or so early because they want to see Sitka. And so by the end of June, it was pretty grim. There were no reservations, there were no people coming. I did not get anyone until July 27th, and it happened to be from a fellow that was having charter. He's a charter fisherman, and he had 6 guys coming. And so I got some business for that, and that was enough to make my property tax payment to the city. But I have other problems going on, and I'm advertised as you'll have to excuse me because sometimes I can't remember words these days, handicap ramp and handicap accessibility. And I have set aside a bathroom on the main floor with a room for people that have problems with steps because it's a 3-story house. And one of the things that happened is the supports for that handicap ramp rusted out. And so they had to be replaced. And I've been having a lot of people talk to me about it was hard to get into that bathtub in that bathroom. So I wanted to replace that bathroom with just a flat-out rocking shower. And so I had Schmock Mechanical come, and they did an estimate for me to do this, and their estimate was $9,600. And I already paid to get the handicap ramp straightened out with some of the money from that first go-around. So that's what I need to establish this, and
if you
hopefully
could-
we'll have a better
If you could wrap
season.
up your thoughts, thank you. Thank you. Didn't realize you were ending right there. Didn't want to cut you off, but I need to have a fair process for everyone as well.
It's fine, thank you.
And if you're willing, I don't know if the assembly has questions for you, but if you're willing to answer questions, they may. Bringing it back to the assembly then for deliberation. Or a motion if,
I
Mr.
think
Knox?
This one, unlike the first, it's a lot easier, obviously, to draw the line between the drop in tourism and the COVID response, the response related to the pandemic. I don't know that, in particular, the ADA compliance or trying to upgrade to an ADA, accessible house has anything to do with COVID. Actually, it doesn't really at all, but you certainly have suffered, quite a bit of loss due to the drop in tourism. I think, again, we kind of come back to what Tor pointed out too, though, is that we had to, in lining all of this out, we had to establish a process and guidelines that, had metrics, marks in being able to apply this to as many people as we possibly could throughout the community. And making these decisions is incredibly hard, for sure. I mean, none of this is going to make anybody whole, obviously. And, how does this really apply into the process that everybody was afforded? I think, like Tor said too, I mean, we could have an entire room full, a line out the door of people, pleading for extra because this has been extra hard on everybody. I don't know really how to make these decisions in the end. It's tough.
You want to reply? I'll say something to you. When I looked at this application form for this thing, the reason these things have to be done, and I didn't have a good season last year because of the ferry system, and then COVID hit us, and I have been saving money to put aside to do this project so that I could have more people be comfortable that come that are handicapped. I get a lot of older people. And so that's why I thought, well, I didn't make what I usually make. And I've had to be really careful about how I'm spending it. And this part of it in my mind was, if I can get this done before the next year, which I'm hoping will be done with COVID by then, that I'll be set up to make up some of the loss I have, because I can handle more handicapped people. And that's what was in my brain, in my mind.
I move to grant the appeal for Ann's Gavin Hill Bed and Breakfast.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Ann's Gavin Hill Bed and Breakfast. Sarah?
Mr. Knox?
No.
Ms. Duncan?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Ms. Himshoot?
No.
Ms. Nelson? Oh, she's not here. Mr. Mosier?
No.
Okay, the motion fails.
Thank you for your time this evening. Sarah, was there something about a phone call for the next applicant, or are they?
Yeah.
So if the assembly will stand by for 1 minute, we have to get the next applicant on the phone.
Hello.
Hi, Rico. It's Sarah calling from the assembly meeting.
Okay, let me turn off my. Okay.
Perfect. So, can you hear us okay? We're at,
Yes, you are like very, very loud. So, yes, I can hear you.
great. So we're at your appeal. Mayor, I'll let you take over from here.
Yes, good evening. So this is the appeal for fishing vessel Sea Lark. For the applicant who's on the phone, you'll have 3 minutes to state your extenuating circumstances, and then it'll come back to the assembly for some deliberation. So if you could start by stating your name for the record, and then 3 minutes will be yours.
Richard Mulligan, and I do have the fishing vessel Sea Lark. I am 70 years of age. When my deckhand was coming up from Arizona, and this whole COVID thing and started up, just to get out of Arizona, like any state, to go to another state was always been an issue, and so it took a time for him to get out. So this year he came up with his girlfriend, and he talked her into, well, she could work at the fish plant while he was fishing. And so he decided to come up with her. And so they arrived in around the third week of June, which I just needed a week to get my things together. But I needed time to obviously get my operation going. But once they arrived, it obviously there was the 14-day quarantine. They had no place to go. They stayed on my boat, and obviously I kept my distance for 14 days. So I had a real slow start because I was everything by the time she got a job at the SPC and went to the bunkhouse and rains and got past the. I got nothing done on my boat, so I was way behind schedule on everything. So we kind of got around things a little bit where they disappeared on days, and I came down to the boat and tried to get some things going, and I did. I was at least able to get, the minor things, but I never got to the main issues with the zincs and what have you on the grid or at the haul out. Then we started our season. I'm behind the gun. Everything was slow. I was obviously not. I should say it wasn't very organized. It was chaos kind of thing. So I had a real bad start, and then going into the season, about the third week, she got sick. She finally did get a job at SBC, and then so at that point we were in another issue, another kind of dilemma. So here I have a deckhand that's his girlfriend's sick, and then I'm taking off fishing. That's a 3-minute. So
That was,
Anyway.
you can finish your thought.
yeah, okay. The thought is that she got sick, and then she, as sick as she was, she could stay at the SPC, so I let him back on the boat, and then that created more problems with me going back fishing. And then they finally both, he had to leave with her back to Arizona, and I didn't have a dad camp for the rest of the year, so I'll just leave it there.
Okay, great, thank you. And if willing, the assembly may have questions for you. I've given the other applicants the same opportunity, so I'm going to
That's fine.
extend that as well. Bring it back to the assembly for deliberations or motions.
Just get it on the table. I move to grant the appeal for fishing vessel Sea Lark.
Second.
So it has been moved to grant the appeal for fishing vessel Sea Lark. Sarah?
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Ms. Himshoot?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Ms. Duncan? No. Mr. Knox?
No.
And Mr. Mosier?
No.
Okay, the motion fails.
So, sir, thank you for your time this evening. Your appeal was not granted by the assembly.
Okay, thank you.
Moving on to the next applicant, Northern Images. If the applicant could step forward, please. Good evening. If you could state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to state your extenuating circumstances.
Okay, yeah, hi, I'm Dan Evans, and Northern Images is one of the businesses I have here in town, and I'm a photographer. And this is the first time in 18 years that I haven't made a calendar. I've done them for that long. I've been doing photos commercially here since '87. But, so this year, I usually make about 2,000 calendars. And when it rolled into spring, I decided not a good idea because the stores weren't buying. And so I thought, well, I'll just wait till fall. Maybe I'll do a half a run and maybe bump the price up a little, see if I can make it work. And then, these sales that come up in Christmas, that's kind of my bread and butter time for that. And that's for the artisans market and the Christmas sale. Anyway, that's all gone, so I just didn't do the calendar this year, which roughly is about $14,000 in profit for that stuff. I missed out on 3 photo workshops that were canceled. They were 3-day workshops, roughly about $1,200 a day, 9 days, figure that out. And then photo sales. Not many photo sales people aren't buying much this year. Now, I'm lucky. I do more than one thing, so I'm okay. I do carpentry. I got home inspections. I got a lot of things going on, which Actually, it works out pretty good in times like this. But that's my loss in that business, which is pretty substantial chunk of money for me for a year. And really, that's all I got to say.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Back to the assembly.
Yes, hey, I mean, unfortunately, like I said at the beginning, that I think everybody who applied for these probably could come up with a similar story. Although I will say that, Dan, if you decide to print some this year, I always buy a big stack for my wife's family down in the lower 48, and I will be happy to buy a number of them for that if you do print some. I'll make the motion I move to apply, to grant the appeal for Northern Images.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Northern Images. Sarah?
Ms. Himchut?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Mr. Knox?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Ms. Duncan?
No.
And Mr. Mosier?
No.
The motion fails.
Moving on to the next applicant, Sitka Pregnancy Center. If a representative could step forward, please. Good evening. If we could have your name again for the record, and then 3 minutes for your extenuating circumstances.
Pregnancy Center. Well, it's probably not that hard to understand what happened to the nonprofits. And we usually have a big fundraiser in March. We do the 4th of July, and we have something that we do in the fall. And of course, March was not able to do it, and that usually brings us around $10,000 to $12,000. In the 4th of July, we make around $6,000 or $7,000. And in Alaska Day, we would make about $4,000, something like that. So our funding, our ability to hold nonprofit funding things was cut out by the COVID-19. We still have things that we have to try to support. One of them is where we do baby bathtubs full of things for new babies over at Search, and we've been doing that for a while. But we're needing to advance, and that's why we have our fundraisers. We want to get a machine, and I've researched the cost, and there's a used one up north for the pregnancy center up there for $10,000. And it's a smaller one. And of course, if you get, the larger you go, the more expensive they are. And so you have to have a doctor involved and a nurse. And so one of the things that we're trying to do was coordinate with Mountainside Clinic, let them use our machine and refer customers there, or our clients there, and they refer clients back to us. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do. And we also are looking to keep on raising funds to get our building. Right now, we're renting a space in a trailer. So that's why we submitted for funding.
Thank you for your comments this evening. We'll bring it back to the assembly for deliberation. Guess that's you.
Your turn,
I
Kevin.
think we're all kind of feeling like broken records. I move to grant the appeal for the Sitka Pregnancy Center.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Sitka Pregnancy Center. Sarah?
Mr. Mosier?
No.
Mr. Knox?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Ms. Duncan?
No.
And Ms. Himchut?
No.
The motion fails.
Thank you for your time this evening. Moving on to the next applicant, Sitka Sportsmen's Association. If a representative could step forward, please. Unfortunately, you don't get 6 minutes, but.
That's good, I will let Chad speak.
If you could both state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
John McCrane, President of Sitka Sportsman's Association.
Chad Gaten, Vice President of the Sitka Sportsman's Association.
Thank you. Please.
Let me begin by thanking each one of you, not only for what you're doing here tonight, but just in general for what you do every night that you're here, trying to do the best you can for this community. I'll be right up front with the bottom line. We are the host of the longest running salmon derby in Alaska. Our salmon derby started in 1965. This would have been our 55th salmon derby. For the first time in the history of that salmon derby, we had to cancel it largely because of COVID. People come from all over the country to participate in that salmon derby. We just were not getting the indication that we were going to have enough people participating to make it worthwhile. That is by far our biggest fundraiser of the year. We usually net about $15,000 from that. We also have revenues from our RV park, which is funded by people coming here to Sitka to visit and staying in the RV park. That obviously was down for the year. We generate revenues from our shooting and our classes that are held out there at the Sportsman's Association, and we had very diminished numbers in our leagues, and we had to cancel some classes. So we were hurting for revenue all over the place. So that's why we're hurting from COVID, but let's talk a little bit about what the Sportsman's Association does. Every year, we give out numerous scholarships to graduating seniors right here in Sitka. This year, we gave out 3 $1,000 scholarships to graduating seniors. Right now, we're not sure that we're going to be able to do that in the spring for this graduating class, just depending on what revenue we have available at that time. We are also the host of the Sitka Shore Shots. If I could have them stand up, please, in the back of the room. They are our state championship shotgun shooting team. They actually took a night off of training to be here tonight to show their support for what it is we're trying to accomplish. They travel around the state, and so we're able to provide a facility for them to train, and that provides them not only, of course, with the opportunity to shoot and the camaraderie, but also the discipline and the maturity that comes with any sports. And so we're happy to be a big sponsor of them. We also provide training facilities for hunter education. We provide classroom space for a variety of different classes. The list just goes on and on and on as far as the number or the type of groups that use our facility. And right now, with utility bills being what they are, that is our biggest expense, is keeping the lights on and keeping the heat on so that all of these different organizations can use our facility. And that's why we're here tonight asking you to reconsider. And I will certainly take any questions.
Thank you for your time this evening.
Good job.
Bringing it back to the assembly.
I think this one is the first one for me personally that begins to rise to another threshold. I don't know if it has actually met, an additional threshold that we are looking for at this point, one that is compelling to not only just this body, but it has to be compelling to the entire community, I think. The loss of the Salmon Derby as a fundraiser is definitely impactful to the association. It's also very impactful to the entire community as a community event, as a revenue generator throughout the community. That multiplier is a big one. We understand and reflect that. Is there anything else that you can provide to us, to the community as a whole, that you think really does rise above and qualifies you for additional funding? And is there something else that is really compelling that would bring us to that next level?
Thank you, Mr. Knox, for the opportunity. Sure, if I'm on. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Knox, for the opportunity. What I have here is a list of more of the things that we do, and I'm not going to certainly go through every single one of them, but I just want to kind of hit on some of the different organizations that use our facility. So we talked about the Sitka Shore Shots. Our training range has been used by the Boy Scouts of America, by 4-H, by Hunter Ed, as I said. We hold numerous leagues, including Intro to Shooting for women. The gun safety training is happening out there on a regular basis. Ducks Unlimited uses our facility for fundraising. We talked about the 4-H. We also have a regular Coast Guard out there, they reserve the place for a day to come out and shoot and just have a camaraderie event specifically for the Coast Guard. We have the Sitka, turkey shoot. And again, I'm not going to sit here and read the entire list, but there are just numerous occasions. It is rare that we don't have somebody out there, a different organization out there using our facility at least once a month, if not more. And we just want to be able to keep the lights on and provide them with that facility and be a resource for the entire community to use. We are also a gathering point in the event of an emergency. So we are designated as a shelter in the event that the road gets closed. People can come out there, and if their home for whatever reason is unlivable, they can stay there temporarily until we get the emergency mitigated. So we're also designated as that, and we are a ham radio site. So in the event that the road is cut off, we can have communications from that end of the road into town.
We are also a designated landing strip for Coast Guard if they need an emergency situation.
I have a question for you guys, real quick. So, how much does the salmon derby normally gross? I mean, between the selling the fish and the fees and all that?
Our goal is to provide 30,000 to continue for the following year.
No, I mean, not your net, your gross.
Oh, our treasurer's not here. I don't have that.
Well, I'm just a little surprised you were under 100,000, that's all, with the full gross, not the net,
A lot of our prizes are donated, and so I don't think those donations are calculated in as far as revenue.
The other, I think you probably could have, is my point, is.
Okay.
and-
Yeah, that could have been recorded as an in-kind.
Right, I mean, the other point is, and this is a question for John, is the money still there? I mean, I have two questions. One is if we did approve an appeal, would that just come out of the round two?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a whole pot of money for both of these rounds. And what I will say is, I'll go back to the beginning where I said this was the very first objective look. I don't know what's going on here. This is the first very objective look. That was the point of phase one. Phase two, and I encourage you to apply if you haven't already. That's where, especially for nonprofits, there's much more of a subjective look at it. And you'll notice in that application that the amount you receive in phase one will be applied to the amount you'll be eligible for in phase two. So it's kind of, if you get it in one, it's probably going to be deducted from the other one. So yeah, again, yes and no.
And then my other question, maybe for Brian or for you, but do we have the option, I mean, they're eligible for 2,500, they're asking for 10,000. Can we split the baby and go 5, and is that legal?
Well, I wouldn't say splitting the baby is the way to do it. I would suggest that if you've heard something here from today from one of the appellants that makes you think that they fit within a different section of the matrix, then if you have a rational basis from their discussion here today, then you can push them up.
Okay.
But if you don't hear enough evidence or enough to make you feel like they should be pushed up into the different areas, then I suggest you don't have proper basis to approve an appeal.
Then I have one more question for you guys, is what is the value of the prizes roughly for the salmon derby? I mean, because if you're a nonprofit, that's a donation, and that's part of your gross revenues.
It varies from year to year, but probably 30,000.
Your gross revenues, what roughly what they were for those guys when they turned it in?
That's part of the redacted application, so I don't have it
Do you
in
know
front of
what,
me.
were you willing to say? If you're not willing to say,
No,
that's
no,
fine.
it's not that at all. Our treasurer completed the report, so I cannot speak intelligently to that, unfortunately.
Mr. Mayor? Does round 2 have a similar appeals process to what we're doing tonight?
It will have a similar process, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Well, isn't this something where we could, this particular one, because they may have not properly recorded their revenue, so would normally be eligible for a higher amount, possibly? Could that be looked at in capacity?
Yes, yes. If you've heard enough to make you believe that maybe they should be in a higher category, then you can grant the appeal. But if you don't think you've heard enough from them to say that they underreported on their application or something to that extent, then I suggest that you should deny it.
So staff went through and they provided eligible for 2,500, correct? And then I also saw that they checked the initial request for 5,000, but then I also see they're asking for 10,000, and then in the letter it says, but really any amount would help. So I have a lot of numbers that are kind of floating around.
Yeah, you have to understand that they need to fit within the matrix of the program. And it's just not, the assembly isn't awarding these monies based on some point of need. It's on the other part of the matrix. So I don't think it would be nice to have that additional information about your revenues. Yeah.
Are you planning to apply in the second round?
Yes.
Mr. Mayor?
And then for me, first round revenue does offset second round revenue. So I do believe that there's a compelling case to not grant this appeal, simply on the fact that round 2 can come through in a more holistic type way. But yes, please.
I'd like to ask, is there an impending financial hurdle between now and the resolution of round 2 that we're unaware of?
Do you have an approximate time frame for funds that would be released from round 2?
Estimating middle of November.
Then no, I don't believe so.
I move to grant the appeal for the Sitka Sportsman Association.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Sitka Sportsmen's Association. Sarah?
Mr. Mosier?
No?
Ms. Himshoot?
No.
Mr. Knox?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
And Ms. Duncan?
No.
The motion fails.
Thank you to each of you for your consideration.
And thank you for your time this evening as well. We'll be moving on to the next applicant, St. Gregory's Catholic Church Soup Kitchen. If a representative could step forward, please. Good evening. If you could state your name for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes to state your case.
I operate and serve a service that for the past 14 years prepares and serves a well-balanced hot meal each Saturday, as well as a sack lunch served for the last 14 years. So we've had this soup kitchen going for 14 years. As well as we have a sack lunch program for the 5th Sunday of every month that has 5 Sundays. And that's probably about every 3 months we do the sack lunch program. Through our program, we've been providing a hot meal for our homeless population or anybody less fortunate with means. We also provide for and deliver to some of our folks at Alaska State Housing and Disability Housing. And on occasion, we deliver also to the Sitka Safe Shelter. We generally serve between 20 and 40 persons on any given Saturday and happily serve anybody that walks through our doors, which has included transients looking for work, as well as seafood industry workers just looking for a nice hot meal. With the onset of COVID pandemic has affected us financially in several ways. With the shutting down of businesses and churches, our donations, which we are 100% funded by, have slowed down to a trickle. We also have the added cost of meals prepared on a to-go instead of being able to serve inside our facility because of the restrictions placed on us with COVID. Over the past 2 months, our numbers have only dipped down to 35 one time. So with the added cost of the meals, our donations and volunteers almost at a nil, and the numbers of meals rising without lowering the standards, maintenance to our facility has really taken a big hit. So I believe we have the full support of our community and I've heard nothing but high regards for our service. And it's my belief that this money would be well spent with the benefactors being the community at large. And so I just ask you to consider my petition for the full grant. And I thank you too for your consideration.
Thank you. Assembly?
Can you reflect a change in the numbers that you have seen during the pandemic?
The numbers have increased. Over the past 3 months, my numbers have gone up from, we usually did 20 to 40. 40 was a high number. Now 40 is an average number over the past 2 or 3 months.
Okay.
Yeah.
And there was CARES Act money specifically set aside for what it sounds like to be a program like you're operating. Were you able to apply, and did you receive any money from Mr. Leach? Was it group 2, group 3? But anyway, there was a specific pot of money set aside for just what you're doing. Did you?
Wasn't aware of that. The only one I was aware of was the one that came out here.
Okay.
And I applied for. If
And-
there was another one, I would apply.
And Mr. Leach, is that still open to application, and is there still money left?
You're speaking about Category 3 in the food security program. That was a sub-recipient agreement that we granted to the tribe, and they're managing that program. So I don't have an exact update right now on how much of the funding is left
They are
for
out,
that program.
yeah, they're currently out soliciting, trying to find ways to get some of the funds out there distributed. So definitely check in with STA and Tribal Enterprises. Camille Ferguson is handling that program.
And Mr. Leach, in your estimation, would this qualify under, because I know there was a little money left in homeless shelter. Is this a potential use of those funds?
I believe it could be an appropriate use of those funds if they are supporting the homeless community as far as mitigating COVID impact. Yes.
Okay, great. So a couple options have been presented tonight. If this appeal does not go as you intend, I would encourage you to reach out to our administrator, John Leach, as he may have some other avenues where you can continue to help populations in need. Tori, did you have something?
Well, just that it's as Brian kind of explained to us, if in order to grant an appeal, we have to show that for some reason they don't fit the right category or something like that. And unfortunately, I don't see that here. It's not so much as it is a great program, but it just, there's nothing to appeal here. The gross revenues aren't higher so that they are eligible for the higher amount, so.
And we have that documentation. This is a completed application with the financial statements that were submitted.
Yes, we have that information. There's only a few people that have access to it just because of the personally identifying information in it.
That makes sense. I just wasn't seeing the box checked and it said not applicable, so I just wanted to make sure that it was complete.
I move to grant the appeal for St. Gregory's Catholic Church.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for St. Gregory's Catholic Church Soup Kitchen. Sarah?
Ms. Duncan?
No.
Mr. Mosher?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis,
No.
Mr. Knox,
No.
Mr. Christensen,
No.
and Ms. Himshoot.
No.
The motion fails.
Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you. And as indicated, there may be some other avenues where we're able to get some assistance out to those who need it. So please, thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, sir.
I need to leave for the evening. I have got a text from family situation, so.
Understood. Thank you for your participation this evening. Moving on to number 9, Taquina Adventures, if the applicant could step forward. Good evening. If we could have your names for the record, and then you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening, I'm Serena Wild,
I'm Chris Lillehoff.
and we are the owners, operators of Taquina Adventures. We originally established our business in 2018, but we didn't begin operation until 2020, so therefore we don't have any 2018 or 2019 tax. We didn't have any revenue until beginning of this year, and we have not qualified for any of the COVID relief because we have no business history. So we're hoping to come here, and our business was deeply affected by COVID. In February of March of this year, our season was about half booked, and we had sports shows that we were going to go to. All of those sports shows were canceled. We did not feel comfortable soliciting to people to go on a vacation or travel during a pandemic, so our advertising cut way back. We had 2 large government contracts that we were supposed to do this summer for transport. One contract was actually a month long, and that one was scheduled for 2021. If the borders open, we can do that one. And the other contract we have lost. And out of the bookings that we had this year, half of our bookings that were supposed to come this summer rebooked for 2021 and did not come this year. So our season ended up being maybe a quarter booked when we were on track to be fully booked by May. And our boat we bought this year, and it was supposed to get here in January so we could start work on it. It was delayed getting here until April because of COVID. It was up in Seward and we couldn't go get it. And let's see what else. Basically, everything about our business is tourist-based and it has been affected by COVID. And we're brand new business trying to get started. And what we'd probably do with these funds we didn't ask for anything because I didn't know what we could ask for, but if we were awarded the funds, we would use them to pay our moorage in the harbor and to pay our utilities in the harbor, because luckily our lender gave us a pass for the summer, but now we're beginning our loan payments this fall. We have our insurance payments. We have all of our normal payments, so we're just looking for some assistance in our moorage and utilities. We're just want to get by to make it to 2021 because our season for 2021 does look very good right now. We are maybe 3/4 of the way booked for 2021 or more. So we're on track, but we need to make it through the winter. We need to be able to pay our mortgage, pay our utilities, pay our insurance. Those are the big things. And our boat is a larger vessel. And as we all know, the Sitka Harbor system is spendy. And the bigger your boat is, the more it costs. And that's kind of where, oh, look, I have 17 seconds left. I guess I will end it there. Any questions?
Thank you for your comments this evening. Were you aware of the Harbor Moorage Assistance Program? Did you apply and qualify for that?
I applied, but I have not heard either way whether or not we received it or not.
Okay.
And I don't know when or how we received those notifications.
I think it just applied to your account.
Yeah, it would just be applied to the account.
We have not received. We haven't received our mortgage bill that should affect yet.
When did you begin mooring in the harbor system? Because that's part of the qualification.
Sure.
We enrolled in the moorage in March, right before that cutoff, because our boat was supposed to get here in January, but COVID delayed it, so we didn't enroll in the moorage, and then we thought we were going to get the boat down here in March, so he enrolled it in the harbor system then. But it didn't physically get here until April because of COVID.
So just to be clear, you were denied completely because you didn't have any previous records?
Correct.
Yeah.
And that, we've been denied federally, state, everything because we have no previous business history.
That's why we're appealing to you guys, because we're spending the money here.
Yeah, the money will go back into the city. We're not going to take the funds and go on a vacation or anything. It's so we can pay our bills through the winter.
I don't know how to
I
deal
don't
with
either.
this. I mean, it's frustrating.
Well, there's no programs to
Right.
help us out.
I understand, and I'm frankly up here trying to think of a way to grant your appeal, and I'm not hitting anything just because we have the requirements. And help me out, guys. You guys get any ideas? Because I can't think of one where we could legally do this.
Mr.
I-
Leach has an idea.
Yeah, can I just ask questions, and Melissa, if you can help answer, what was the date for the cutoff for the mortgage assistance, the start date?
It's either March 1st or March 15th, and if you did not get a notice, then you got it. Okay.
I believe it was March 15th because I believe he enrolled in March 13th.
Okay.
So it was just by a couple
You would
days.
have gotten a notice.
Okay.
If we did not get it, we did not send notices to those who received it.
Excellent.
And would they have also qualified for the business utility subsidization under that same program if they were registered as a business?
No, because mortgage accounts were
Okay.
not eligible.
Gotcha, that's right.
Harbor utility.
Right. And then also, did you apply for the utility subsidies? I'm really just looking for anything we
Yeah,
were
we did
able
apply
to.
for the utilities for our personal home, and we got that for our home. And yeah,
Okay.
so we have 2 mortgages now, boat and a home. I know we don't, because of the no business history, yeah.
And that's kind of where I'm at as well, is that I think we're hamstrung by these programs that are handed down from the feds. And we still have to live within those guidelines as well, even when granting these appeals. And that's what makes your situation definitely unique from anything we've heard tonight, is that there is no business history in the past as they do require. And
I could tell
It
you how
hurts.
much we potentially lost.
it hurts. Yeah, and
was
I think everybody has
a
those
lot,
numbers
yeah.
as well, that what they should have made. And no, I agree. On this one, I was searching for something to help, because I think there should be a minimum level of help. There are a lot of people that received the minimum level of help, and I don't know.
So a federal requirement is that any business that tried to get up and operating this year, if they don't have that backing from 18 or 19, they're just out of luck. Okay.
We have to show a number between what they lost, and without a back number to show, we can't show it.
Yeah, it's not necessarily that that's the hard and fast guidelines from the feds, but the Treasury guidance is you have to have some sort of baseline to show how COVID had affected your business, and without that baseline, it's hard to measure that, because that's one of the things they are going to look at in the audit, was what was the loss and how was it related to COVID, and how did we help to fix that.
We do have like a signed contract with the International Boundary Commission, who was supposed to work with us, and I think that contract was $63,000, like signed contract, and then they're supposed to come beginning of June, and in May they're like, sorry, we have to reschedule for next year. So, I mean, we can show a signed contract showing that we lost $73,000 in revenue, but that, I know that's not the same as real money, like that we actually took in, but.
Did you submit your lost booking revenues that you had people sign up for prior to the March deadline for the day? Was that submitted?
No, because nowhere in the application really said submit that sort of thing. I didn't know if that's still projections, you know, it's,
Yeah, it doesn't, I know about the application, it wasn't
Yeah.
in there. It's a unique situation. What would those losses, did you total that up? Can you affirm a number tonight?
hang on one second, he was, so, is this what we did bring in or what we lost?
This would be losses.
Actual bookings prior to March 1.
Deposited money.
Okay.
Could that be something you could hang your hat on?
Because we did have, we took, the bookings that rebooked for next year, what we do is we take 50% as a deposit and they pay the other 50 when they get here. So we did take their 50% deposit and they didn't ask for refunds of it. They said, hold on to that deposit for next year. So some of it we did take. Yeah, so we
Right.
did lose half of it.
So between the 70,000, your boundary commission, and did you have over $30,000 in cancellations?
Including the boundary, yes. Definitely.
I mean, no, not
Oh,
including
oh,
the
no,
boundary. In addition to?
Yes, because we had another contract to provide transportation and housing for they were going to do remote work on a site in Peril Strait, up on top of the
And
mountain.
that was more than 30,000?
How much is that
So,
gonna be?
Brian?
I'm afraid I'm leading them down a way that I
Right.
was talking with Melissa just a second ago, and having that as a criteria for lost revenues of prospective customers is outside the parameters of the application program. And it would be unfair. I mean, it wasn't what we suggested to the whole city. So it would be outside of the program, and there could be other people who, I'm sorry, as far as I know, it doesn't fit within the program. It's just a
You
kind
got
of
me
a
excited
little
there for a
hole.
minute, but
I know.
sorry.
This is the problem I keep running into, state, federal, everything for our business. I kind of expected it, but hey, can't hurt to ask.
It never hurts to ask.
Can always be told no.
Is there a motion on this?
I move to grant the appeal for Takina Adventures? Takina.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Takina Adventures. Sarah?
Ms. Hemshu?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No. No, sorry.
Mr. Knox?
No.
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Ms. Duncan? No. And Mr. Mosier? Oh, and he's not here. The motion fails.
Thank you for your time this evening. I will be moving on to the next applicant, Greater Sitka Arts Council. If a representative could step forward. Or representatives, plural. Good evening. If you could all state your name for the records, and then you'll have 3 minutes to go over your extenuating circumstances.
Good evening, Mayor Eisenbeis, members of the Assembly and staff. Thanks for having us here tonight. My name is John Stein. Charlie Morgan.
And Rain Vandenberg.
So I'm a member of the Greater Sitka Arts Council Board of Directors. The council was incorporated as a 501c3 nonprofit in June of 1973, which was 47 years ago. The Greater Sitka Arts Council mission is to uplift the cultural life of Sitka through its wealth of arts programming, physical sponsorship, and support services. If there's a time we need uplifting, it is now. And to increase awareness of the value of arts through education, advocacy, and programming. And for this, we are looking ahead. The current board of directors are Patrick Hughes, Bobby Jordan, Rain Vandenberg, Charlie Morgan, and Melinda McAdams. If you, your children, grandchildren, or your businesses have enjoyed these past GSAC activities, then we again ask for your financial support. The Wearable Art Runway Show, Holiday Artisans Market, Kids Holiday Crafts Fair, Friday Artwork Walks, the Grind Variety Show, Sitka Folk Song Circle, and Sitka Folk Open Mic, Community Theater, Scholarships, Artist Receptions, Spectacular, Craft and Sip, Public Art and Murals, Sound and Lighting, Equipment Rental, Event Insurance, Mentoring, and Promotion. In fact, face of these dark times, your volunteer board continues to promote these activities to inspire creativity, use new technology, and provide positive anticipation, development of talent, and provide personal enjoyment. Next.
And so we haven't been able to hold any of our in-person events this year, and that is really what sustains us as an organization. But we are continuing to do things for the community during this time. We've been doing some Zoom online kind of art events to raise awareness about artists in the community. And we are going to do an art walk that's virtual as well as in-person, kind of spread out, not do it one day, but over a period of a month, to really support the arts and the community and our local businesses and shopping local during the holiday season. So, and we'll do another one of those in the spring as well. So just so you know, like, we are continuing to do things and be as vibrant as we can, but we are not able to hold our main fundraising events.
So I'm the treasurer, and from our 2019 taxes, we raised $56,000 last year, of which $53,000 came from our events, which we cannot hold. So 95% of the income for the Arts Council was basically evaporated. This year, so far, we've raised a total of $5,900. 2/3 of which was raised in the first 3 months. And some of that was carryover from 2019 from the events we had. We didn't actually get money from until January, February, and March. Since March, we've only gotten $2,100. So basically, financially, we're in pretty dire straits, and we're hoping to be able to get some money to bridge us until we can begin to have events, and community theater can have events, and the Grind can have events.
Great, thank you all for your comments this evening. Assembly?
There's a quick question. So we didn't get the nice little stamp on this one. So they were approved for 2,500, is that correct?
Correct. 25, well, what I'm seeing is a $2,500 approval and then requesting 5,000. Is that correct on the application?
Yes, we had requested 5,000, and then we were encouraged to ask for 10, but any amount that you can give us would be helpful.
It's a brokered record, but we've got to stay within the rules. And, you know, like you say, you're the last of a long line, and I just don't feel like it's okay to step out for one group.
This is one, however, with a 95% revenue loss for the year, that round 2 grants may be fit your organization exceedingly well, because I know it's either, well, no, on the nonprofits it's a little bit more subjective and on a smaller revenue side. So if you have not yet looked into round 2 grants, that application period is open for the next 2 weeks, and you may find a little more leeway in that process as well.
Please. If I can add to that, Mr. Mayor, and I will summarize this at the end too. That is very true. With the loss in revenues, this fits perfectly for round 2. And I just want to reiterate that the intent of this first round was to get just a small amount of money in as many people's hands as possible, and then target in for this second round where there could be substantially higher grant amounts. So I would encourage you to apply for that second round.
I move to grant the appeal for Greater Sitka Arts Council.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Greater Sitka Arts Council. Sarah?
Mayor Eisenbeis?
No.
Mr. Knox?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Ms. Duncan?
No.
And Ms. Himshoot?
No.
The motion fails.
2 more weeks on round 2. Thank you. Moving on to Toad's Taxi LLC. This will be our final applicant for the evening. Good evening. If you could state your name for the record, and you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Harmony Garnick. I'm the registered agent for Toad's Taxi LLC. Taxi service is an essential business. Expenses for fuel and maintenance are extremely high in Sitka. The drivers are put in an increased risk for COVID. Ridership is decreased considerably. I've had to institute additional safety measures to protect myself, my drivers, my customers, and the community at large. The CARES application asked for gross business revenue for 2019, and I was under the $100,000 mark. But the combined total sales for all of Toads Taxi LLC's drivers in 2019 was $123,390.82. I'm hoping the Assembly will grant my increased request based on our total services to the community of Sitka. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments this evening. I guess, Mr. Leach, I know you looked at this application and went through it. Is there opportunity to combine, I guess let me take a step back. Are your drivers hired as independent contractors?
They leased the taxi from me.
They
but
leased the taxi? And so
those fares all went through Toads Taxi. But the drivers do pay sales tax individually. None of those drivers applied for this grant.
Mr. Leach, I don't know if that changes anything from what you've seen already. I'm assuming not, but is that different information than what you had in front of you?
I wouldn't be able to answer that question right here on the spot.
Understood.
I'd have to look at the application a little bit more, but the FAQs defined what could be counted as revenue, so I'm confident that the grant analysts as well as our finance staff reviewed the appropriate tax forms and calculated the revenue appropriately.
Understood. Thank you for the clarification.
I move to grant the appeal for Toads Taxi.
Second.
That's been moved and seconded to grant the appeal for Toads Taxi LLC. Sarah?
Mr. Knox?
No.
Ms. Himshoot?
No.
Mr. Christensen?
No.
Mayor Eisenbach?
No.
And Ms. Duncan? No. Motion fails.
Thank you for your time this evening. Again, round 2 is available. If you could put together an application for that, you might find a little more leeway in round 2. Thank you. So that is the last of our appeals this evening. I've been sitting here debating, what to say after this appeals process because that beat me up. That really wasn't very fun at all. And I know the applicants are probably walking away feeling the same way this evening. I think unfortunately we're within some pretty strict federal guidelines on this, and I don't know that we had much leeway tonight. But I guess I just do want to say that every one of you are essential to our community, that every applicant that came forward is essential. Every business that received some sort of funding and didn't come forward, you're also essential to our community tonight. So I don't want people to walk away from this process this evening feeling extremely discouraged and just give up hope. But I think we acted within the guidelines that we had to. So I apologize if the results were not as you needed. But for the final time, I'm going to plug the round 2 grants and make sure that you, if you have the need and you have the ability to apply for those. They are open for 2 more weeks, and that application period closes on the 31st of October. There is, I believe on the city's webpage, there's more information about that, and you can get a hold of the grant technician there as well. So thank you to the Assembly for your time on this tonight. We'll move on to persons to be heard. This is for public participation for any item on or off the agenda, not to exceed 3 minutes for any individual. Is there any public comment this evening? All right, seeing none, I would entertain a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Thank you. We will adjourn for this evening.